chat all by ourselves for a while. We've been everybody, welcome to the Event Industry Facebook Live. It's Friday. I don't know if you know what day it is, what time it is, even really care. We were going to go live at 10 a.m. We've had some technical difficulties. But you know what? We're back and we're rolling with it. I'm going to have you I'm going to have you guys reintroduce yourself. And I don't know, Allison, you said before we went live that you're glad that I was in the driver's seat. I don't know if maybe that is the best idea. For someone who likes to do this and is having a really good time, I'm like so technically challenged with a lot of things. So anywho, all right. I'm joined by two of my former colleagues that I had the chance of working with at No Kid Hungry. I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about their event planning, fundraising background. And then we'll kind of jump in and maybe take kind of recap some of the conversations we had earlier, because I think it was interesting stuff to share. So Allison, if you want to take it away with your background in event planning.
I'm so ready to be live. This is exciting. So my major in school was public relations in the journalism school, and I went straight into PR agency life. I always worked on the consumer side, so I had a lot of culinary ties and restaurant ties, and then moved into restaurant marketing. So I worked both on the agency side, but then also in-house internally at fine dining, casual dining, and fast casual all over the country. So it was very exciting, which made a very natural transition, as you mentioned, through the No Kid Hungry connection into nonprofit fundraising through culinary events, which I have been doing for multiple clients for the last 10 years. And my business is called Type A Development. Our tagline is event production from the fundraiser's perspective, just because there are so many things that are nuanced specific to fundraising charitable events. So we've got that experience.
Extremely valuable, for sure. Miss Katie, where have you been? Hello.
I've been all over the country today. Let's see.
Virtually.
Profit industry about 20 years ago, after graduating from with a degree in English. I started off my career at the Make-A-Wish Foundation, where I was doing entry-level development work and small-time events with like third-party organizations, like students who wanted to raise money for the organization and stuff like that. Decided that was going to be my niche forever. I decided to go back to school, get my master's in public administration with emphasis in nonprofit management. And then after that, I'd been kind of bouncing around between, I shouldn't say bouncing around, strategically growing between nonprofits, taking my skills from what I've learned at bigger nonprofits and then applying them to smaller grassroots nonprofits. And then kind of going back to the bigger nonprofits to kind of learn more tricks of trade to be able to work more, work with a bigger team. I eventually found my way to No Kid Hungry, which is where I met you, Jen, and I was managing their San Francisco and Portland, Oregon regions. And then, fast forward, oh my God, how many years has it been now? 6 years? 6 years.
We started working together? Yeah. Well, no, it was 6 years since we both left around the same time. Yeah.
So it's about 6 years since I guess 5 years since I left San Francisco, and I'm currently in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as their director of development for their Betty Brant Children's Museum.
I know those days of working with No Kid Hungry and traveling all over. It's like there's part of me that always will hold a special place, but this time of year was just bananas. Like Facebook reminds me that around this time we were like going into having like one huge major food and restaurant tasting event after another in major cities, and we were like flying all over the country with all of our stuff, and it was a whirlwind for sure. I don't think with 2 kids now I could survive. I think I might die.
Yes.
I think that was for the young at heart, for sure. Okay, so obviously all of our businesses and our organizations are experiencing some challenges. I don't think anybody is immune to this whole situation at all. Maybe Amazon is doing faring pretty well, or if you make hand sanitizer, this is a good time for you. But how are
Or
your? What's that?
or toilet paper.
Oh yeah, or toilet paper for sure. um, for what have been some of the challenges that your organizations or your companies have faced with everything going on? That's been, I don't, you've been able to kind of overcome them too. I think we're facing hard things, but I think it's also kind of like how we come out of the situation. So, what have you guys been faced with lately?
Being a children's museum, we are completely and totally closed to the public. We've been closed to the public for since the 13th. So this is what, our 21st day now of not working with the kids. And that's been a complaint-hold challenge. Even though we no longer are public facing at the moment, we're still working from behind the scenes, and which has kind of allowed us to go from a organization when I first started that was strongly rooted in like 1998 technology wise, and this has like catapulted us into the 21st century. We're now using Zoom and Slack, and like we're able to communicate with each other from our separate homes. And it's also forcing us to rethink of what a children's museum is. And starting next week, actually, we're starting a whole bunch of virtual programs. Whereas, like now, I'm going for, because I need to add more things to my plate. Is I'm hosting like a mommy group, via Zoom, and actually a caregiver group, because dads are welcome too, so are grandparents. But it's kind of like really kind of have forced us to think creatively, as well as also look at our roots too. It's like, what is essential to be a children's museum, and then how are we going to still stay connected to the children and the families that we serve.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because it's sometimes it's really easy for organizations or just people in general. Like if it's not broke, don't fix it, and change is really difficult. When you're in it in a nonprofit or even a company, you're kind of in the grind and maybe not so motivated to do something if it's going to be a lot of work up front, maybe a financial investment. Some people, you're going to have to motivate the team to all get on the same page, and everybody's got to like embrace it, and then it's going to be a thing. And it's like the situation has been what.
So, can you hear my child in the background? Sorry about that.
No worries. I thought you were trying to give me a signal.
My microphone, and I don't know where it is on the phone.
No, you're fine, honey. Kids are welcome. I'm sure mine are going to come running in any minute. I was just saying that I think that it catapults everyone to be forced to change. And sometimes that can be a really good thing, especially if it's things that really needed to happen, but we're going to take a lot longer because of all the different hurdles that I was, kind of just explaining. Allison, how about for you, for your business and the clients you guys serve?
Well, I would say for challenges, definitely all of the nonprofits still have their mission related work going on, as Katie mentioned. So like while we're trying to come up with plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G for these fundraising opportunities to replace events, or plan B for all these events, they're still doing their actual work. So, and maybe like Katie mentioned, figuring out new ways to do it. So I guess the distraction level is really high, and the importance of making sure that they're still successful in that mission related work, whether it's No Kid Hungry, which by the way is insane busy right now because of the need, right?
So important.
I think it also, specific to them, has a huge benefit for awareness. I think people are more aware now of the hidden epidemic of childhood hunger in the United States because the schools are closed and the Facebook groups are talking about it. And I think I would never call it a silver lining, but I do think people are more aware. And all of my different nonprofit clients are still having to focus on their mission related work while deciding, oh, we got to cancel that bike ride for MS, that's not going to work. So I think that's one of the challenges, is kind of navigating both of those at the same time. While we feel like events are very, very, very important, it's certainly not the only thing that they have going on.
Can you
No.
park for fundraising for biking? Everyone get your
What's that?
Peloton, and everyone get on a Peloton.
Oh
And
my gosh.
Oh my God.
Maybe.
What the
I've
do
been
it.
doing a lot of tipping
make it
bartenders virtually while I drink. So I don't know if that counts. Supporting in that way.
tip your bartender?
No, we have a thing in Atlanta, and it auto populates an out of work hospitality person, and then you can send them a tip.
Oh my
Love
God,
it.
amazing.
That's cool.
You'll have to send that to me. I'd love to share it.
Yeah.
Tip your bartender.
You guys, it's so worthwhile. Like, I'll throw $5 here and there, and the responses they send are so appreciative from a stranger.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I've been doing that for musicians because I've been listening to a lot of live music online, and so I've been like tipping $5 here and there. I listen to a lot of Questlove's Roots thing every night too. I don't tip him. I feel like he's doing okay. He's doing fundraising stuff.
He's fundraising for food banks and things like that. So
yeah, he's doing some good stuff. But I do love his nightly stuff. I thought it was just a one-off thing, and then I just keep seeing it, and it's pretty
You're back in.
stuff.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Allison, any opportunities or any things besides tipping your bartenders that have come up that for your clients that might be a silver line, or I don't know, maybe a good thing right now?
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say on the collaboration front, I keep in touch with a lot of other nonprofits and people who are in similar event fundraising roles.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always had good relationships, but let me tell you, we cut to the chase right now. I'm like, what's your soft date for that postponement? When are you thinking, are you still going to go forward on that one? Like, what's your confidence level? So I think having that collaboration is huge. And because of that, I mean, honestly, I've been on social media a ton because I don't have a lot of free time, newfound free time. But I will say, like, I saw a nonprofit do a live auction on Facebook Live last week on Saturday night. I watched part of it, and obviously they had to make adjustments for tech delays and things like that would be totally different than if it happened at our events.
Yeah.
So like they were giving everyone 4 minutes to put in their highest bid instead of 10 seconds at an event. So it was, but then they because they had those breaks, they talked about their programmatic work like while they were waiting. So they actually had the camera with a step and repeat with like the event director standing over there and a live auctioneer standing over here. I just thought, wow, that's such an interesting way to address an event cancellation while you still have a captive audience. And that obviously used a lot of auction software as well. I think, the good news is nonprofits are very familiar with auction software and ways to collect donations. So they can just pivot and use those in new ways right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That leads me to one of my other questions. Are there some softwares that you guys are going to be using more, like you've used before, maybe you use more, or even software that maybe you're checking out as like a new possibility for some of these events, whether they be like a gala to go live? You mentioned Facebook as an element. I did see an event last night that turned their event into a virtual event, and they used Facebook as a platform. Their fundraising element was Give Smart, and they did pretty well, it looks like, in terms of the silent auction thing. I tuned in way too late, so I think there was a live auction component. I don't know how they executed it. I don't know what happened. So it was hard to see from the fundraising element, like what was successful and what was maybe a little challenge or things to kind of work through the kinks.
Yeah. You and I tuned into the same event last night, and I found it kind of, I mean, I applaud them for, having to pivot so quickly and like come up with an alternative way to host their gala. And what I found, I guess, like as a viewer who's trying to pop in to like kind of see how that was done, I just wish that they would have given me like a better timeline. Like I knew like when to turn in, and like I could actually have seen that. Like that's my only thing. It's just like I wish that there was like stronger communication that I could have, when coming to, or when I guess changing your event from a in person to an online is just like over communicate your time and your your need and stuff like that. And I just and I'm not criticizing them. I mean, they pulled this together in a matter of like 2 weeks. It's not a criticism. It's just like I would have loved to have seen that live auction, and I just didn't, and I'm bummed.
The 2 points I totally agree with you, Katie. I mean, in terms of the pivot too, and this kind of relates back to what we were talking about before we went live about the planning for like if the event's going to happen, and then the planning for the cancellation. I've had to do a little bit of that too, so I can't imagine that they're like, yeah, and they got probably a few weeks out thinking they were still going to do it, and that's where you're basically done almost 90% of the work, and then you have to then reimagine like a whole nother thing that's virtual. I mean, it makes me like want to just like lose my shit thinking about it. So I can't imagine. They're probably all like hopefully resting really well tonight or writing thank you emails. I don't know. But there's that. But then I think the stronger communication, that's such a great point to kind of to consider, because I think one of the things that we do as event planners, and like I think it's ingrained with us, especially the background of hospitality, is you have to guide the guest and basically make it so easy for them to not really think. You have to make the entrance really approachable. The whole experience is thought through in so many different respects. So it's so easy that they have a great time, and then they feel compelled and they want to donate and all those things. And now all of a sudden you're having to kind of rethink that, because some of those elements in that structure is not going to be in place, like physically. And you're going to have to do some maneuvering. So I think that's a really good point. Anything you guys want to add to that? No.
The only other thing I can think of that I think has potential, but I haven't fleshed out a plan, are doing online raffles as you're legally allowed to wherever you are. I think there might be more legs from a fundraising perspective to do that than maybe a live auction that's so time sensitive to when the thing goes exactly in for the bid at just the right moment. That's confusing. And I also am far down the road, whenever we come out of this fog, figuring out which way is up. I'm really thinking about some smaller events. Like, where are people going to feel comfortable? Typically the events I plan are 500 to 1,500 attendees. I'm not very confident that people are going to feel great jumping into a crowd right away, even though we're all like antsy to get out of the house. So I'm really trying to shift my internal brainstorming back to, smaller events that would have a shorter ramp up time. And maybe instead of selling tickets like I usually do for $250, maybe the ticket's $1,500. Maybe it's $1,000. Maybe there's 20 people there. That's what I'm trying to kind of challenge myself to think differently about.
Yeah, I had a conversation with the group earlier this week. We did like a private virtual chat with some planners. And one of the things we talked about is how this is going to affect catering, food and beverage operations. Not only from like what might be a jurisdiction health department new regulations, but also like guest perception. I think we're all going to have, they just made an ordinance in California where you now need to wear a mask going out. I don't think they're going to cite you. They just started saying they're going to cite you for going to the beach and stuff like that, but they are making it a very strong recommendation that you wear a mask going out. And now we're all wearing, and before that we were all wearing gloves. I think when we go back out into the world, when we're able to kind of go back into a social setting, there's going to be a little bit of PTSD from like, is it safe? You're like, I know it's safe, but is it really safe? And trade pass food or any sort of buffet element, obviously there's going to be some service ways around that. But beverage service, like I think some of these things operation wise from an event execution perspective and culinary wise are going to have to shift. Not only because it is not that it wasn't safe or sanitary before, but maybe just even from the perspective of the attendee.
I would say, good news in that collaboration front. I know, right before we went live to everybody, we were talking a lot about the restaurant industry and that sort of thing. We work really closely here with the Georgia Restaurant Association. So straight up, I used to sublease an office in their space. So I know them very well. But I really appreciate that relationship and that they can continue to drive home, this isn't a foodborne illness. This isn't what's going to make you sick. That being said, I can't have an attendee come in and sneeze on all the pieces, to cross contaminate a room. So I think, looking at how they're talking about that in the restaurant industry will really help also guide that event conversation,
Yeah.
and kind of the precautions that might take place. To me, obviously, like putting out a bunch of anything at any time sounds so scary.
Yeah. Well,
Food
and
wise,
I mean,
food
that
beverage.
definitely like transfers over into the museum world, right? And the hands-on, please touch kind of museum world.
Oh
And
gosh.
luckily, there are people out there that like just like love the data and have been like pulling people and really kind of pulling together statistics for us. And it's a great website. I can link it to you, Jen, in case anyone wants to see it. But they're
Yeah.
saying, I think it was way over 70% of the people won't really feel safe going back to cultural institutions until there's a vaccine.
Yeah.
Half of the people will feel better once like things are kind of lifted, because I think that those are the half that are just itching to get out and they're willing to take the risk and they're going to believe in like some sort of herd immunity. But I think we're going to look for things to be at least a year, if not 2 years out, before we see some sort of sense of normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can totally agree with you on that. I mean, and I think normal is going to take a couple different shapes. Maybe normal, like, well, where you can get 500 to 1,500 people together in a tasting event and it'll be no problem and people will be less sensitive about it. I kind of related in this conversation we had before is that like I flew on a flight out like the day after they resumed flights after 9/11, and it was out of San Diego, and there was like it was just insane. The airport was insane, but collectively we were all very much on edge because of what happened. It was a collective trauma as a nation, and I think that we're all going to experience something very similar. I think there's going to be this like, yay, we can come out of the house, but like we still don't want our babies to get sick. We still don't want our loved ones to get sick, or our parents, or any our friends and anybody else. So I think there's just going to be still some trepidation as a result of getting through this, and maybe the vaccine is going to be the answer. We were having this.
Well,
go ahead.
And what do you think the not to derail, what do you think the canary in the mine is going to be? Like, I was thinking, some event is going to have to go first. And we have to see if they crash and burn. Like, someone's going to have to be first out the door. I mean, is it sporting events? Like, I mean, that's kind of.
I think baseball's going to take it, right? I mean,
well, I'm in the South, and let me tell you, I'm not a football fan, but every single other person who lives here is.
Mm-hmm.
And with college football and all that jazz, like, I'm like, if college football is a go, I think the world's back in. I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't really think that's going to be a thing this fall, not to break everyone's heart. But I am very like, what do you guys think? What are things you're looking at to see, what would be our measure of confidence of people being out in the world?
There's a giant music festival here that like spans a couple weeks, actually brings in like hundreds of artists, and usually it's in July, and then I believe that they postponed it until September. If that kicks off in September, I think we're going to be slowly working our ways back into being normal in Milwaukee, or at least people going out and being in big groups. I don't know if it's going to be normal. I don't know. I don't even know what normal is going to be like in tomorrow, let alone in 6 months.
Yeah, that's a good question, Allison. I mean, I produce Dia de los Muertos here in San Diego, and that's obviously not until November, but last year we drew over 70,000. I mean, like,
yeah,
that sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, it was kind of challenging last year in general, but I mean, what are we... I haven't even, until I'm like kind of thinking out loud, like I haven't thought about like what we're going to need to put in place we have some months out, but it's not like where we're at right now is going to get to normal completely by November. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think
I wish the testing existed, obviously for all the reasons, everyone's well-being. But I was talking to one of my brothers earlier today, and I said, I just wish they could test for the antibodies, because I think my other brother had it. And if he could get the test for the antibodies, and then yes, the virus can evolve and become different things, but like he could be at Meals on Wheels today, packing meals if he knew he wasn't going to get it and bring it home and, stay clean and whatever. So I think maybe I'll be interested to see your link, Katie, to see if that's part of the threshold that people are measuring against too, because I would honestly feel so much more confident if I found out all of a sudden I had the antibodies because I had gotten it.
Right. No, I would too. I'm trying to think like of the other things that would kind of like make people. Oh, actually, you know what it's going to be, or it could be the DNC, the Democratic. It got pushed back from July until
to August. I think they pushed it to August.
Yeah, I think it's August too. I should know. It's in my city. I got the email on it. I'm like, oh, I'll just look at that later. Sorry.
I feel like the last month was a blur. So I mean, I know we have. I don't know. It's like we're supposed to have this extra time, and we sort of do, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I still have clients that have events later this year. I mean, we're still pushing forward, but I also had clients too that had summer events that, one just got canceled yesterday, but we were doing the if not, then what are we going to do sort of situation with events. All of a sudden, like you, I had a nonprofit client that had their fundraiser on February 28th, and thank God, because they were able to do their event before anything of this was like really like a huge scare, and it was really successful. And they're a spinal organization, and they help a bunch of kids with spinal surgeries and spinal deformities, and yeah, it was just I can't imagine if they weren't able to have their event. And it just makes my heart go out to the groups, the organizations that aren't, because they rely on this funding so much. And now it's not, it would be magical if like people just donated money, but, and hopefully they are to some degree, but they really do enjoy the experience. And then they come to the experience, and then they, invest in even more. So it's sad that those things aren't going to happen right now.
We can go down a whole different tangent about fundraising and the, during a disaster year or crisis year, because like there's a whole different like line of strategy with that stuff. So it's just like, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
It's when to ask, when not to ask, how to engage, how to steward. It's like, okay.
Well, and frankly, I always get nervous during an election year anyways, because so many things are up in the air, and I feel like people are kind of holding their breath before making huge commitments or donations or whatever it might be, or setting a certain budget aside and letting me know about it. Thankfully this derailed that concern altogether, because I don't even have brain space to think about it right now. But I think there's so many things, whether it's the economy or, who's in the White House, nervousness, things that happen that aren't even a pandemic, that shake confidence going into fundraising for events. Now we've just got like the perfect storm of all of it going on.
Totally. I've never seen, it's like, since it's been happening, we've been talking to our funders and really kind of being, communicating with them, letting them know that staff's still on board, and we're now doing all this collaboration with other cultural institutions. And I mean, the market shift has completely and totally, not devastated, but I mean, people's foundations, they lost like a third of their money, just within the last month. So, yeah. I mean, you go from being, nearly $5 million, fund, and all of a sudden you have like 3.5, and you're just like, it's going to change funding for the years to come. It's going to change how, what funders view as priorities and whatnot. It's going to have some really interesting consequences. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, On a positive note, with some of the things that we were kind of going back to the virtual elements, we talked last week with one of the companies I work with here in San Diego, and we talked about like virtual events, going live streaming and stuff like that. And one of the elements that he kind of recommended might be like a funding opportunity or branding opportunity, because I know we all work with the corporate or even sponsorship element, is maybe even some video kind of almost like commercial aspects. And this came up in that, or I kind of thought about this last night when I was watching that gala that went virtual. So they relied a lot on video. Some of the video they had, most of it they had pre-recorded and they kind of spliced together. It was like at-home videos and it was executive director speaking. But I think there might be a way to then try to figure out how you could use video component and highlight a sponsor. And I think that might even be more valuable from a sponsorship perspective. If you're coming from a business owner of like, what's going to be the most compelling to kind of tell my brand story and get in front of these eyeballs of people that are going to buy my product or buy my service is a large component of why they're sponsoring. I mean, it's all goodwill and stuff, but it is a marketing element for them. And if you can give them showcase or feature that is more prominent than say just on the step and repeat and just on major signage or whatever, but gives them like maybe a 2-minute opportunity to tell a story that's in a video component that also is something you can quantify, like you can attach count eyeballs to it, shares, and more analytics, I think, to kind of show the value for that investment. And kind of back to your point, Katie, is that you're going to have to add that value or kind of compel them. And I think that if we are looking at some of these options, that might be a way to go of incorporating some video and maybe some ways to kind of sell sponsors and stuff that would help sell their company. Because I think there's going to be limited resources after this. Not that it wasn't limited before.
So our gala isn't until November, so we haven't even started to ask for sponsorship, and who knows what that's going to look like in a month or so when it's supposed to all kick off. How about you ladies? Have you guys seen sponsors pull out of events? Are they just on hold with you guys? Are they pivoting with you guys? What's happening?
Sponsor wise, I will say I was very surprised with one cancellation how many of them told us to keep the money. I was like, what?
Wow.
Like I said, the organizations are still cranking forward. The mission related work is still happening, if not more than ever. Bless you. And so I think that's a positive. And I mean, and frankly, some of them told me, call me back when you reschedule, I'll write you another check. And I'm like, whoa, just give it to me now. I don't want to reschedule. I don't know what's happening in the world. Right now, the next event that I have on my radar is August. And we do have some sponsors committed. Again, I think a lot of them would say just keep it. It's a smaller event, so I do feel like I can pick it up and drop it into January if I needed to, wherever we feel like we're safe, if not August. If anything, I think that we're going to feel the pinch on the next round of asks versus them pulling out of current commitments. But I don't know. Is that, Jen, is that your experience as well?
Yeah. I also come from a standpoint too that I have clients that are sponsors of things. So I work with a lot of corporate groups, and they were looking, had me vet a 5K for them that they wanted to sponsor. And so there was an event that was supposed to be in June that they were going to be part of, and that obviously is not happening. But I think I'm in the same boat as Katie, is that one of the next bigger ones that has sponsorship tied to it is in November, and we were going to be part of that. And all of that, there's not even any ask going out right now. Some of that would be tied to some liquor sponsors and product sponsors, even some cash sponsorship. And I just don't even know how that's feasible. It's almost like I'm sticking my head in the sand right now and then waiting till it's safe
Never
And
safe, Jen. It's never going to be safe.
Well, I mean, you would
I don't know.
legitimately sound crazy if you were just doing like your regular sales pitch right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's that.
You'd be totally tone deaf, and it would be
Yeah.
so bad.
I know. Yeah, I'm like, hey, distillery, do you have $5,000 you want to give us for November? Yeah. Okay. Just click right here. It'll no problem. So
Well,
I
and I think maybe we're going to have to share Plan B more than we usually do with
Yeah.
all of those people who come together for events. And, sponsors is one bucket. But I mean, frankly, I was trying to think, how is the landscape different for nonprofits? I don't know how many other events outside of nonprofit world have these like robust committees that we have to communicate with,
Right.
or individual donors that are somehow connected because they love the event, that sort of thing. I think, my plan for August is that I'm going to write out the plan, have a few people bless it, and then I'm going to share certain portions of it with those audiences. Because if I say, hey, you want to be the featured sommelier in this? Oh, you've lost your job? Well, we're trying for August 23rd, but it might move. Like, I have to be realistic in those conversations. I can't.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna have to navigate how much of that we share, and just like you said, so that we don't sound tone deaf, we are realistic about the world and the fact that I feel like I'm standing on quicksand and I don't know where to get my footing, but also like we have to move forward with something.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's such a good point. I mean, and then back to, we were talking before the conversation about the restaurant industry in general. I know that there's a number of events that both of you guys do or have done that relies on those communities and those restaurants, and some of those are not coming back. I mean, that is just, some of them are not going to be able to weather the storm, to reinvest, or have the financing to kind of cover however long they're going to be closed, and it's just not going to be worthwhile in general to come back. And I was reading an article today in the Reader San Diego about a restaurant group that was talking about how this might give them an opportunity to collaborate as well. So to your point, Allison, about even as fundraisers and event producers, our collaboration, like that might even inspire the restaurant community. They're great community supporters of not organizations, but not so much always in the way of collaborating together. It's very competitive. It's a kind of a chef nature too, but it's a challenging landscape. And so this might give them an opportunity to kind of come together to kind of forge something that's a little bit stronger in numbers too. Because they're not going to be able to support our events with the same magnitude that we've that they've been so generous with in years prior, with their time and their product and their expertise. It's just not, even with their spaces, they're really hurting right now. So
Well, I would say their hearts are still going to be in it. So I think it falls back on us to find a way for them, those left standing, I am a realist, but hopefully lots of them, to participate in a way that it's easy for them to say yes, because it's not coming out of their razor thin margins, because we're asking. Like, now, where do we reinvest some of our event expenses into making it feasible on their end, knowing that, they've just taken out all these loans or whatever it might be to just keep their building. And I think, our experience in the hospitality industry as individuals is going to be really valuable in understanding that.
yeah.
And, my plan, frankly, with some of these smaller events is to figure out how to make it a win for the chef as well. To say, would this X amount of money, be really helpful if I took this out off the top to help you right now? I think there's like, I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about it, but I do think there's a win-win that we just have to figure out what it is.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there. I don't think that there's going to be so many in-kind donations in time, in terms of food. I think that it's going to have to really truly now be more of a partnership, whereas nonprofits may have to be like a little bit more realistic, and like there's a real cost to these chefs that do participate, and so you're going to have to lose a little bit of your whatever you raised, and to pay back these chefs, just look at it as a normal expense cost and work it into, nonprofit budgets, that actually to have all these chefs there, it's going to cost so many thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if it's just another night that they can pay their support staff to come help them, you know, and it's not like a huge generator, but it's also just helping to grease the wheels. And I think, you know, as I work on these smaller event plans for the future, I'm definitely going to put a framework together and call some of my chef friends and say, is this a turn on, a turn off? What do you hate about it? What's appealing to you? And I think that's where all of our longstanding relationships are going to be so valuable.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to have that conversation again too. If you guys get down the road here where you're having those conversations with chefs and with restaurants, that, you know, No Kid Hungry started out with this as a Share Strength and the Taste of the Nation event. God, what is it now? 30 years ago? I remember we were at like 25.
Atlanta was going to be 32 and we were 1 year behind the oldest, so 33.
Wow. Damn, I'm getting old. So this is a long time that restaurants have been, you know, supporting not only No Kid Hungry and the amazing work they do, but also this is just, I think in every single city, there is a restaurant or a community organization that has benefited from restaurant and the culinary entity support. And I think this might be an opportunity for us to turn around and maybe there's ways to even support them after this. I know a number of them are trying to do the to-go elements and maybe tip your bartender, but maybe there's something even beyond that we can do too.
What would be really interesting to see is not only the nonprofit, you know, food events, but also what happens to like the food and wine festivals and like Feast and all these other like major food festivals where chefs are expected to, you know, not only serve folks but and participate and lend their name, but it's like it's a weekend out of their time, and it's gonna be really interesting.
Well, and I think anything that involves travel, just from like remembering how our March melted down, I feel like the first thing to get cut was anything that involved travel because that was scary in and of itself. So I think some of those travel related events are going to face different concerns now.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And that's a good point. Well, one of the things I just wanted to maybe, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add to maybe the future of fundraising events or any advice to future fundraisers or event producers besides, you know, find some wine.
I mean, that helps. I feel like this has been like very common thread in every role and title and position I've ever had. But I find that the way people are going to be the most successful is just the value of their relationships. We talked about it just now with the chefs, but I mean committee members. And I think the way to navigate this right now, since we have no clue what's going on, is a lot of listening and hearing people out more than ever. I mean, frankly, beyond all those groups I just mentioned, I mean, I'm worried for my vendors. I'm worried that the people I'm used to working with there is going to be a totally different person because they got let go and, you know, that kind of thing. And I think just maintaining that network and checking on people in a really genuine human way that isn't just because it's my job is going to be more important than ever. And, you know, we all got into the positions we're in now because we can do that. But I think if people are trying to think of like, well, what do I do right now? Just keep your relationships, maintain your relationships. And, you know, I ordered 100 branded note cards because I got some time to write notes to people. Those are things that I always wish I could do.
That's exactly it.
And is it going to change anyone's world? No, but that's how I like to relate to people and sending texts and that kind of thing. I mean, I've been calling people for my venues on their cell phones just to like check in on them because is their hotel closed? Did they get let go? Like, also they're equally freaked out, you know, like we're all in this uncertain time and I don't want to have a pity party about that. I just want to let people know, hey, I've been thinking about you a ton. I hope everything's good.
No, that's a great piece of advice. Thank you for pointing that out, Allison. And I think a lot of people have distant friends that I haven't talked to in a long time, or my old roommate in San Francisco, like texted me. She's like, I know you're in this world and thinking about you and your husband's in the hotel industry and like, how are you guys doing? And So I've been trying to do the same, but I think I can do even more. And so I think I'm definitely going to make that a focus next week of some note cards and just reaching out and checking in too. Cause I think that is so important during this time.
I mean, it's beyond silly that I ordered 40 birthday cards just to have a pile of birthday cards, because I never have time to look ahead at a calendar and figure out whose birthday's next week from like broad, every relationship in business. And I'm like, I guess now I'll do that.
You're like 2021, don't expect it. It's not happening. This is only a 2020 thing.
This is a let's see if I can get it together thing. I mean, but I also had my business partner order stamps for me online because I can't figure out how to do it right. Because I also don't want to go outside. So, like it's got challenges. I'm taping envelopes closed because I don't want anyone to think I licked it. I mean, it's weird. Weird.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Oh, how about you, Katie? Any words of wisdom that you want to bestow upon the planners of the Facebook world?
Allison nailed it, or at least nailed my strategy. It's communication. It is touch base, communicate. I mean, we got on the phone and called all of our members. It was kind of one of those things where we've never done that before. And it's just like, and it's such an easy touch that people are going to remember, you know? And I mean, and you come from this point of earnesty. It's like, you really want to check in and make sure everyone's doing okay. But then at the same time, you're just like, oh, I'm now building, 7 steps away, maybe a future donor, kind of a thing. That is the fundraiser in me that's thinking, but it's just like, first and foremost, it's making sure that your fellow human is still doing okay. It is, what else was I going to say to, we'll just leave it at that. And be easy on yourself during this time, because man, it's changing daily, and all you can do is change with it and just kind of, be ready to go on to plan, F if you have to. So, no one's been through this, know. I mean, I first started off in the industry 3 days before 9/11, and that, and yes, that totally changed how fundraising was at that time too. But people were able to pick up afterwards, and it was just different. It was a one-time occurrence that rocked the world. This is going on, and there's so much more uncertainty to it. So, and it's affecting everyone. So, I mean, we're all in this.
I moved to San Francisco in 2009 because that's it was like a really good time to like pick up and quit your job and move to a big city.
Yeah. Good one. Super solid.
So smart. I was like so smart at 29. I did have a job lined up for about 5 seconds, but that fell through. And what was still standing in a city like San Francisco was the restaurant industry. And I had the honor to work at SPQR, and they were very busy and very successful, and was grateful to, even with the economy not doing so well, I was able to, work in a restaurant and be able to pay my bills and have, just work for a great company. But I think that's what's different from right now. Like the people were still going out, there would be still people, like not everyone could go out as frequent. Right now we just like can't do anything. So some people are going out and doing to-goes, and you're really, really limited. And even that was a hard landscape to navigate, but it was, came with some restrictions for some people and maybe not as many for others. And I think this is just a very different thing that's also tied to people that can get really, really sick. But to leave things on a happy note, wanted to ask if there is a business that you wanted to give a shout out to or promote, and a reminder of the area in which you live in. If there is, maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a service or something. But I thought what is something that's come up with some of the groups I'm talking with, or even some of my vendors, is just doing like shout outs and support of small businesses. Like small businesses are definitely going to get us through this, and we're all gonna, come together. If we all come together and support each other, that's definitely going to be the way that we can help survive. So if there's a business or a restaurant or whatever that you want to give a shout out to, now is the time.
Well, that's a loaded question. So
Right.
to not point out one of my friends and leave out all the rest.
I know.
What we're trying to do right now is on the No Kid Hungry Atlanta, which is NKH Atlanta Instagram handle, is in our stories repurpose what our restaurant friends are doing that day, because making a master list is difficult. Everything's changing for them every day. But that way we can really just kind of echo and show our support to whether it's a caterer who's now doing family meals that you can pick up, or a restaurant that's doing something different. I think, anything you can do in your own social channels, whether it's your friend who sells nail polish strips, or something involving your event connections, I think just like shouting them out in your own channels is really important.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I have access to one here that has a little bit more reach than I do. And I try to just repurpose things there. So even, when you're on Instagram and you're noticing things, whether you're going to regram it or not, I think just like tag people that you think might be interested. I do that a lot too.
That's a good idea. Katie, do you have any?
Oh man. It's really hard, but I will actually, I'm going to do a shout out to my former committee members in San Francisco who actually came together and they founded a nonprofit that's all volunteer ran. And what they're doing, it's called Frontline Foods, and they are supporting restaurateurs by buying meals for frontline workers in hospitals. And so it is incredible. It's all volunteer ran. It's spread it up nationwide. And I think, in a matter of a month, they've raised like $1 million or something ridiculous. I mean, it is
awesome.
Amazing to see what can happen between the tech industry, come together, do some good around the, really this could go around the globe and be that good. So I give a shout out to Frank, Devin, and Ryan.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the reason why it came to mind is obviously I'm trying to do this on a daily basis, and there's a local catering company here in San Diego called Continental Catering. They reached out to a bunch of event planners and vendors, and they put together these care packages, and they hand delivered them yesterday. And it was beer and stuff to make salsa and tacos and chips, and it was the perfect San Diego tacos and beer and chips and salsa. Like, what more could you want? And they took the time to put those all together and, support the restaurant or the event industry, the community, and all of us planners and vendors that are still trying to truck along. So very thankful for Continental Catering for their care package yesterday. It was appreciated by myself and my husband. And I know a lot of my fellow vendors also received the same, and we all like regrammed it and posted them and tagged them. So I just think that the more that we can do that for all the great intents and purposes, like just have something positive to focus on too, which is great.
Well, I'll mention this just really quick. I have a friend today in Savannah, Gray Harper Florals, who just wanted to put orders in with her floral wholesalers because they're hurting so bad. And so she did like an Insta story, just, would anyone like arrangements? I'll deliver them. I'll make them with gloves on. Like, we will not interact, but I'll run all over town. And I think she was delivering 20 something today.
Oh, wow.
And her margins this is not a profit thing. This is her trying to give her wholesale floral companies some business and some love during a bummer time for them. And it honestly gives her something to do today. And, she loves putting together flowers, and a bunch of weddings canceled or postponed. So, I think thinking like your catering friend outside the box of just like, well, who could I give business to if I have a little free time? How could I make this into something that makes a lot of other people smile? I think we're all spinning the wheels, and there's some positive outcomes there.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, it was so great to see your beautiful faces today and talk to you guys. I'm so glad we had this opportunity. And I think there was just a lot of great tips and information that came out of this that could help us serve our clients or organization and hopefully help other planners out there as well. So thanks for taking this time today.
Thanks for organizing us.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, Jen.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. I think I'm going to now start calling this take 2 because
Okay.
that's usually that's how many takes it gets.
Plan B.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.